Mr. Chairman, you're live.
Thank you. The meeting will come to order. Please call the roll.
This is a roll call for House Education, February 27th, 2026. Representative Bratton.
Here.
Representative Erickson.
Here.
Representative Guggenmoss.
Here.
Representative Kelly.
Excused.
Representative Lawley.
Here.
Representative Singh.
Excused.
Representative Strzok.
I'm here.
Representative Williams. Here. Chairman Andrew.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. The first bill on the table for our consideration is Senate File 35. Chairwoman Schuler.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Co-Chairman and committee. Poor Representative Guggenmoss has got to see me twice today. I apologize ahead of time. He got to sit through my other bill, but anyway, thanks for letting me come over here and talk a little bit about Senate File 35. For some of you that may remember, I brought a bill last year to ban cell phones during instructional time. And what my Senate colleagues said is, we should probably just let each school district decide how they would like to do that. They agree that cell phones are a problem. So this is the result of that. So this bill basically will, I hope anyway, will help every school district to be able to help our students to be able to focus on their schoolwork and hopefully help us deal and help them deal with the increased number of discipline issues and mental health issues that we've seen with the increased cell phone usage. Right now, there's about 30 states that have banned cell phone usage by students. But again, this bill just requires that every district have a policy. And so what we've seen with the data from other states, I've done a little more deep dive since last year. And honestly, the cell phone usage is really a drag on academic achievement. So we kind of wonder sometimes why our scores have maybe dipped a little bit in some areas. And I would just like to blame a lot of that on the cell phones. But what they found is that even if you have your cell phone out, those of us that are adults, I know none of the Senate and House members ever take ours out, but our adult brain can handle taking them out, putting them here or putting them here. But a student and an adolescent brain, the studies say that when they take their phone out, whether they have it here or face up, that just that short amount of time where they get a notification from whomever, then it takes them 5 more minutes to be able to refocus. So I think that's a huge thing to remember, that there really is an issue. So what I would hope is that every school district will come up with the policy that it either needs to be put away or put in a locker or in their backpacks or whatever. But again, it's going to be up to the school districts. And so whether it be a bell-to-bell policy or if some districts decide they want to let them use their phones before school or during lunch or afterwards, each building administrator and each district will have their own policy. What I really hope is that these districts will start involving their stakeholders, their parents, the kids, the staff, everyone, and get everybody involved and say, what do we want? Because it's going to be different in Farson, from Cody, from Evanston, from Cheyenne. And maybe there's not a big issue, in Farson. I'm not sure. But, there's not a lot of students, so maybe they can deal with it a little better. But I know in some of the bigger districts, there is a problem. I went out and analyzed. I would like to have called every district, but I just didn't have time. We had recalibration going on this summer, so it was busy. So, but the districts that I did visit with, about a third of them have policies already. There's a few others that were starting to work on something. And then unfortunately, there were some districts that had nothing yet. They said, oh, we know it's a problem. We haven't really done anything yet, but we're thinking about it. So I'm hoping that this bill will kind of, spur them a little bit to get started. And basically, like I said, in a small district, maybe they'll say, hey, elementary, middle school, no cell phones at all. Maybe high school, you can have it, but only here, or maybe the teacher has a pocket they can put it in or whatever. So basically, it's just a situation where it's a local control bill. Let everybody do what works best for them. And at the end of the day, what we hope is that the stakeholders, including parents, will start saying, maybe it is a problem. Maybe we need to start focusing a little bit on what's going on with our kids and their phones. And granted, we can only deal with what happens during the school days. But I think what will happen is, one of the districts in my county, they went with a bill to bill. This is their first year doing it, bell to bell policy. And I talked to some of the teachers, I talked to some of the administrators, and they said, you can't believe the difference this has made. Our kids are talking to each other, they're communicating. They said lunch used to be quiet because everybody would go to lunch and they would pick up their phones and they didn't talk to each other. And they said the discipline problems have really, it's lowered those because sometimes, the sexting and bullying happens with these. And they said it's just made a huge change. What my hope is that at the end of this year, maybe we can get some data and find out if their test scores improve. I think we'll find that they will. And not that that's everything, but that is important. So regardless of what, districts decide to do, what'll happen is basically once we hopefully get all these stakeholders together and they come up with a policy that they can all live with, and then it will go basically to the school board to be voted on and then to the state superintendent. So it'll basically just be a check mark. You've done this. It's kind of like what happens with our discipline plan. Each district comes up with a discipline plan and then it goes to the state superintendent and they check it off and away we go. So that's my hope. I just hope that if this passes, that we'll see some real positive changes and kids will be able to enjoy school again, enjoy their friends and even maybe even enjoy their schoolwork again, because they'll be focusing more. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on the bill.
Thank you. Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you, Senator Schuler. Good
Thank you.
afternoon. I appreciate this bill a lot. I really appreciate you bringing it. I think it's really, really important. One of the things that's come up in the past couple of years when we've had discussions around this issue is compliance. Like some districts had policies, but they weren't really enforcing them. Do you think that this will begin to raise the awareness and the importance of even districts that have policies enforcing those policies?
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Mr. Co-Chair and Representative Lawley, that is exactly my hope, because I had heard from some teachers and a few people that said, we tell the kids to put them away, they won't do it. Then we send them down to the office and they say, oh, she's just having a bad day or whatever. It's not like that in every district, but sometimes I think some of the teachers felt like they weren't being supported when they were trying to do the right thing by having the kids put them away so they could focus on their schoolwork. So that's a very good question. And I hope that we come up with some positive outcomes as a result of this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, thank you.
You guys are easy.
The Department of Education, no comment from any state department. We'll open it up for public testimony. In the interest of time, I'll limit public testimony to 10 minutes total and 2 minutes per speaker. Mr. Mullen.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Tate Mullen, Government Relations Director for the Wyoming Education Association. Speaking on and in favor of this bill, I've spoken with many teachers who obviously this is a classroom management problem when cell phones are in play. So this also still allows for local control, which is incredibly important for so many of us here. So just wanted to voice our support for this bill. And at that point, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Farmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian Farmer, Wyoming School Boards Association. Again, supportive of this bill, speak in favor of it. Certainly the local control is something that we appreciate. In our previous discussions, when we've talked about this, the one thing that we've asked for was the opportunity to engage our stakeholders. So when we have that statewide one-size-fits-all policy, it doesn't allow for that opportunity. There's parts of Wyoming, because of our rural, remote nature, some places where kids need to make arrangements with mom and dad for activities after school, different sorts of things that are going on. Transportation looks different from district to district. So this allows us to consider how does it fit in our district? And it allows us to have those conversations, most importantly with parents, around parent interests and parent desires for what cell phone policies look like. Mr. Chairman, I will tell you, it is my belief that I think every school district in Wyoming has addressed this issue. Some of them have it in policy. Some of them have it in a student handbook. Some of them, it is more of an informal practice or protocol within the district. But all districts have had the conversation, so the move to a policy won't be a big move.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Is there any further public testimony in the room? Seeing no one moving forward, I don't believe we have any online either, so we will close public testimony. Committee, what is your pleasure? Moved by Representative Lawley, seconded by Representative Guggenmoss. Is there any discussion? Representative Bratton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just really quickly, my school districts, they do that in where I represent, they do this. They like it. I agree with the concept that they should have a school, or that they have a policy, and that they do not, allow students to have them out, but I don't want to require them to do that. I think people should go to their school boards and encourage them to have those policies and to enforce those policies. So that is, even though I think it's a great policy, that'll be the only reason for my no.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing question having been called, we are voting on Senate File 35. Please call the roll.
This is a roll call vote for Senate File 35. Representative Bratton,
No.
Representative Erickson,
Aye.
Representative Guggenmoss. Aye. Representative Kelly,
Excused.
Representative Lawley,
Aye.
Representative Singh left a absentee vote of no. I'm sorry, absentee vote of no. I apologize, Mr. Chairman. Representative Strzok,
Aye.
Representative Williams. Aye. Chairman Andrew.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that is 6 ayes, 2 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 35 has passed the committee. Senate File 81 is now on the table for our consideration. Mr. Wilmarth.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. Matthew Wilmarth, LSO Senior School Finance Analyst. Senator Rothfuss should be joining shortly. Both of the chairmen of the Select Committee on School Finance Recalibration are involved in the joint appropriations, or the joint conference committee on House Bill 1 and Senate File 1. So they're unable to join us this afternoon. Just believe it was 2 days ago, I provided the committee an overview of Senate File 81 engrossed, and I will keep my comments high level. If you have specific comments, or questions, I'm happy to address those. But this bill is the work of your Select Committee on School Finance Recalibration. As you all know, this is a requirement of Wyoming Statute 2113-309 subsection T. And overall, it provides an increase in funding for the next 2 years of approximately $250 million over your current law. And it primarily forwards your consultants' recommendations. There are a few areas that the committee diverts from those recommendations with respect to technology. The committee held its current law at $250 per student as opposed to $450 per student in the 1-to-1 student computer ratio. The Select Committee intends to commence its work again next interim to continue to study that topic along with school resource officers and school nutrition programs. I would say an overall theme of this recalibration is that it invests a significant amount of money into instructional resources, including increases in teacher salaries. And I'll let Senator Rothfuss speak to the aspect of what they did on the Senate side with teacher salaries. But there are a significant amount of additional resources in current law for summer school and extended day teachers, instructional coaches or facilitators, and tutors. Mr. Chairman, with that, I'll pause and let Senator Rothfuss clean up this with what the Senate did in terms of modifications from the introduced version of the bill.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. And thank you, Matt. Mr. Chairman, on the Senate side, we took a lot of obviously feedback from stakeholders and input. You all may have gotten some emails. We got a few. based on concerns from the recalibration committee. So during that interim, listening to what stakeholders were interested in, and we made some amendments, a series of amendments on the Senate side to address those potential concerns. Those amendments from the Senate committee are called out basically in blue. I assume you all have this. I hope you all have this. Good. In blue, some of the changes, and walking through what those are. We increased relative to the select committee bill, the number of dollars that were flowing into the instructional grant rather significantly. You see that about halfway down the page. And the way we did that was currently in the evidence-based recommendation, the calculation for a average statewide teacher salary is based on 79.1% of a comparable employee. And that's as calculated by our consultant. So it's the idea that because you have summer, you don't get a full-time salary equivalent, you get 79.1%. The Education Committee increased that up to 85%. That was based on some discussion from a few years ago with that same consultant, actually, I think the last recalibration, and chose to take it up to 85%, while at the same time, in kind of a linked manner, diminishing the amount of money that would be available through health insurance. Because as you recall, we originally, and the model, and the bill as it came to us from recalibration, had a mandate that everyone go to the employee group insurance. Then in our first amendment through, or one of our amendments through the Education Committee, we delayed that mandate so that it was after 2 years and we would study it. And then just to be clear, at the end, we took it out in the Senate entirely. But what ends up happening, instead of how we're funding it right now, where we fund health insurance for every FTE, the Senate version, the engrossed version that you have right now, in the first year funds health insurance at your actual number of FTEs as of October 1st, I believe, times the EGI, that's the employee group insurance, so the state plan, rate based on the type of insurance you're getting. So think family plan or individual plan. And that's an actuals level for the first year. In the second year, it goes one step further and takes it to actuals based on whatever plan you have. So you're no longer required to use the employee group insurance, but if there is a gap between the amount of money that you would receive at EGI, which is the ceiling, and what you're paying for premiums as a district, that gets refunded back to the state. So it's kind of complicated, but that generates $60-ish million a year. And that $60-ish million was put over into salaries and is where we got the 79.1 to 85%. So it wasn't taken away from instruction, it was put into instruction, and it roughly equates, it's not identical. The group insurance is, I think, slightly higher than what we offset it with the 5% or so. But it's important to realize that that was conceptually linked. So the districts still effectively are getting that money, but it's going into the instructional silo. And that was an important change that took place in the House through a series of amendments. In addition to that health insurance change, as we put more funds, now going from about $70,560 per year on the average teacher salary statewide to $75,863 statewide, the total amount of money going into that instructional silo is an additional $123 million. And you can see that if you turn to Appendix A and you go 2/3 of the way down the page, that is your instructional silo. And it's important to see where the Senate ended up on this. Under current law, right, that's not the recalibration bill, that's what's in statute right now. You'll see that there's 7,203.96 FTEs that generate just shy of $500 million. The engrossed bill that you have right now generates 7,463 in that first year at $620 million for an increase of 260 and $123 million. A lot of additional funds there, but you need to look through the rest and you'll see some offsets. And the offsets, for example, get on the following page to a reduction in insurance that I mentioned. And just to point that out for you, if you go to the next page and go to the third to the last row, fourth to the last row, you'll see health insurance dropping by $63.5 million. And so we're basically taking health insurance dollars and putting them into that instructional silo. And that's consistent with the intent of the recalibration committee, which was to focus resources on the instructional silo. And I just want to point out for clarity, because there was some misinformation, I think, early on in this conversation, that you had to hold to how the allocation was provided within the instructional silo. And the instructional silo is completely fungible within it. And we have a definition in the bill about what constitutes instructional expenditures. So you could use it for paraprofessionals. You can use it for contracting for instructional purposes. You can use it for any of your teachers to lower your classroom ratios. You have full flexibility with those funds within that silo as long as they're for instructional purposes. And you could even put more funds from outside of the silo into the silo. You just can't take the funds from within the silo and move them out of the silo. So that's an important concept. All right. One of the other complexities, and then there's a few more changes that I want to point to. Because there's so much new money in there, $120 million, the Senate Education Committee added a temporary 3-year provision to prevent inflation from happening due to us triggering the inflation, right? So you can imagine a situation where we would be about 1,400 teachers behind where we could fund. And that's because right now we're about 1,000 teachers short statewide. We'll have enough money to fund those 1,000, and we'll have enough money to fund about 400 more in the instructional silo. Because all of a sudden we have that capacity and there are not 1,400 teachers available instantaneously in the state of Wyoming to point to and hire, we were worried about generating inflation. So we had an amendment that had 2 parts. The first is that districts would be required for the first 3 years to restructure their existing tables and lanes. So exactly how they do it right now, right? They've got salary structure in place for the district. It's got steps and lanes depending on their educational experience. Restructure that so that its average goes to the district average that's updated, where the statewide would be 75,000, as I mentioned a minute ago. So adjust the average so that the new average is at the right point, or 1.05 times your prior district average, because there's 2 districts that are actually already up there. So it gives them a little bit of headspace. But for the most part, everyone would just be dialing into their district average. And then we create a new instructional reserve account where if you have excess funds in that first year, if you can't hire enough teachers in that time period at that salary, it's okay. You can take those excess funds and put them into the instructional reserve account. You don't lose that money. And then you can use those to help generate and hire the next teachers. And each of those 3 years, you can step up a little bit, that salary consistent with the ECA, and stay on target for those 3 years. The idea of that rather complicated amendment is we don't want to do what happened in 2005, where we generate our own inflation because we add enough money to the system that districts start competing with each other for the same teachers, and we lose control of the salaries, right? We're trying to hit the bullseye instead of overshooting the bullseye, Mr. Chairman. So that's rather complicated. The intent is obviously to ensure that we land where we want to land, but we don't penalize the districts for not being able to hire enough teachers quickly enough. They'll have that money in a reserve account. That reserve, to be clear, doesn't count against the existing reserve that is tweaked through the model going to 20%. So in case you're wondering about that. All right, we mentioned health insurance, how that's going. We changed the calculation of the model average daily membership, the ADM. You've probably heard concerns about that. Recall right now, it is the greater of the prior 3-year average ADM or the immediately preceding year. The recalibration bill took that down to just the immediately preceding year. Based on feedback, we compromised and we put it to 2 years. So it's halfway between the two, and there's good cause for that. You get your ADM estimates in October, but you've already made your hiring decisions in April. And that's a pretty hard management system to operate within. So by going with 2 years, we allow a lot better planning. And that fund that I mentioned a minute ago will also help to smooth that. We amended the middle school elective and specialist teacher percentage to 33 1/3% of core teachers. That's what it is under existing law. The recalibration committee accepted the evidence-based recommendation of the consultants to take that down to 20%. But Senate Education believed that these are important things, right? These are your CTE teachers in middle school, your band teachers, your PE teachers. And the state has supported that since the beginning of the recalibration process. We felt that it was important to stay where we're at with that. So we went back to existing statute. We provided a district minimum of 17 teachers to address some concerns from small school districts. We were hurting a few small school districts based on how we do our calculation through the minimum school district or minimum school size. And so we put that in. We moved forward the existing, well, right now in the recalibration bill, in the 27-28 school year, the recalibration committee chose to fund the evidence-based recommendation for counselors and elementary school nurses. And then in the first year, the 26-27, to put in place a $5 million grant program, a continuation of a grant program for mental health. The education committee decided that since we're not appealing that provision in the court case, that we would simply be constitutional now. So we moved forward the starting date on the evidence-based recommendation to immediate, and we eliminated the $5 million program. So it is the recommendation of the consultants. It just starts in year 1 instead of in year 2. And that is then fully constitutional. Another provision that was added based on some concerns we heard about dual enrollment costs and how school districts and colleges were struggling in various ways with paying for dual enrollment. Dual enrollment is when you're a student in high school typically and you're taking a course at one of our colleges or the university. So to solve that problem and ease any tensions, we just created a categorical standalone $10 million per year grant through the WDE to reimburse costs for dual enrollment. So a district just bills for hours and then up to the maximum gets back reimbursement for it. And just so that you know how that works, those dollars are then going to the colleges or the university, right? You're paying your tuition and fees basically on behalf of the student that is attending the school. So along with that comes a mandate that you can't deny any high school student from participating in dual enrollment to whatever extent they want. So there's no cap on it. You don't get to cap the students. If they want 60 credit hours of dual enrollment, I don't know how they'll manage it, but go for it and do your best. We'll talk about the program. Oh, good point. If that $10 million is short, and it shouldn't be. We estimated it probably coming in at 8.2, but if it's short at some point in the future, then it's reimbursed on a pro rata basis based on the number of credit hours. So it's an even distribution. And right now, the districts are just taking in that cost in a relatively unfunded way. So it makes up for that. Let's see. Those are the primary changes. Oh, we did move back, and I'm not seeing it here. Oh, no, there it is. Provides for the annual review for inflation. The recalibration bill had a not less than 2-year time frame for considering the external cost adjustment. We know that from the plain reading of the court, that it needs to be an annual external cost adjustment. So again, to comply with our expectations from the court, we move that back to every year, just as we're doing now. So again, that returns to both our consultant recommendation and what we're doing under existing statute, as well as what we expect from the court. So, Mr. Chairman, you've got great data on a per district basis, as well as the overall expenditures for the next 2 years, including the delineation by the instructional silo. And Mr. Chairman, it was our belief, and we had strong support from the Senate, that this is about as constitutional as we can get. We feel like we're down the center of the plate with the spirit of the decision of the courts so far, knowing that some components have been appealed to the Wyoming Supreme Court. The components that we have not addressed fully that are in the court decision include nutrition, security, and what was my third?
It was
Mental, no, we did that one. Technology, thank you. From behind me, I hear technology. That's the right one that I'm looking for. So those three are a part of the interim work that are slated for the recalibration committee as it continues. And so it is the intent of the recalibration committee to do more work on those 3 areas. And those 3 are basically at the existing statute right now. So they're being funded. They're just deemed to be funded inadequately so far by the courts. And I'll stop there. And Matt, did I miss anything that we did?
Mr. Chairman, no. I think you've covered it sufficiently.
Okay. Happy to answer any questions.
Same, Mr. Chairman. If there's any questions, happy to take any.
Thank you. Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you both for being here and all the work you've done. And I know Matt, you've provided me with a lot of information for my district so I could sort through some of the different issues, and I appreciate that. Senator Rothfuss always bringing clarity, and I appreciate that, walking through it with us. So one of the things that we're still hearing from districts has to do with the categorical grant. Could you address that? I mean, you've explained what it does, but could you address that, kind of how you would respond to that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Representative Lawley. So as the recalibration committee was coming together, we had some early discussions about, where we could find common ground, because there was clearly a pretty broad range of perspectives on the recalibration committee. And the one common area that everyone agreed to was that we should be fully funding our teachers and fully funding the right number of teachers in the classroom. Everyone agreed that good teachers in classrooms led to good outcomes. And so that was what everything else was built around. And the way to do that with comfort for many members of the recalibration committee was to establish the instructional silo, so that if the recalibration committee chose to, and it clearly did, dramatically increase the amount of funds to our teachers so that we could fully fund the number of teachers that we have on model and ensure that they had appropriate salaries, that those dollars would reach those teachers and that they wouldn't end up somewhere else. And so for the comfort of many members of the recalibration committee, that is one of the hardline concepts of we have to have this. And as I called it on the Senate floor, that was the linchpin of the entire recalibration coming together, candidly. We wouldn't have the recalibration bill we have at this point if it were not for the instructional silo.
Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. Did the committee consider other alternatives to just siloing it, or was that the only kind of avenue they felt was the way to go? Did they have other options you looked at to address that issue?
Senator Office.
Mr. Chairman, I would say no. The only thing that we spent time on was what goes in the silo and what doesn't, and how we build it, and how to try and balance that with the block grant so that it's not consuming all of the resources, really just focusing more on what stays in and what stays out than an alternative mechanism. I think that concept was agreed upon early in good faith, with the idea that we would then some of our members basically said, if we can have that silo so that we're confident. Also, with regard to ECAs, the idea that when an ECA is given, there is a desire among many of the members for that ECA to end up where it belongs. So if you're giving an increase in teacher salaries, there was concern that that was not always reaching the educators. And there's good reason for that. And when you dig into the weeds, we know that it relates to insurance costs and other costs of the model. But as that silo was built, there was more and more comfort that as ECAs are given in the future, it'll go in the instructional silo if it's a raise for teachers, that it sort of starts to work as intended, and that comfort really led to the rest of the work.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Lawley, I just might add, I'm not taking a position on the policy piece of it, but there is the definition within the bill, and it's in subsection D, and I can point you to the pages. On page 40, line 7 through page 41, line 4, the flexibility is with the district. So as Senator Office indicated, if they don't want to have a robust summer school or extended day program, they can utilize those resources that are allocated through the block grant and have lower class sizes through the normal school day or year. And so it's a mini block grant within the larger block grant that the district still prioritizes those resources as they see fit. It just restrains those resources to the classroom or that instructional environment. Additionally, during the interim, the committee heard feedback on what does that actually mean. And so there are provisions in there that districts can contract for those purposes as well. And that provides for districts with robust distance education programs or dual enrollment programs. If they want to supplement that piece with the instructional resources here, they can do that. So I just wanted to provide a little bit more context on that piece and where that definition was at.
Thank you. Are there further questions? Representative Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Senator Matt. Help me understand the dual enrollment conversation just a little more. It was my understanding that much of that bill was picked up by BOCES, or that relationship there, and that seems to be different than what I'm hearing. So help me understand. I'm a little behind.
Senator Office.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So BOCES are optional, and not all districts are engaged in a BOCES. And some of them are what we call BOCES, which is still a BOCES. It's for higher education, and it's picking up some of those costs. So many districts are already providing a mechanism for that, and they're doing it through their taxpayer funding. Other districts are using block grant funding for it, for effectively the same thing. And therein lies some of the concern that led to this. How is it equitable that you've got some districts that are assessing additional mills and funneling that towards the dual enrollment, where others are utilizing block grant resources? And so honestly, the simple, straightforward way was, look, let's stop worrying about that complexity. The BOCES will still exist, and honestly, they'll find other ways to support higher education in that community with the BOCES. There's no requirement that those dollars be spent in that way. That's just a choice of the BOCES to utilize the funds in that manner. And the interest then of the education committee was, we'll just solve this problem once and for all. This is something that it's clearly public education. It's clearly appropriate for all students. It's clearly what's being done right now. And we want to ensure that there are no equity problems, that everybody has equal access. So the way we took it on was, here's a categorical grant, we're just going to pay the bill. Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Williams, I'd also note there is a companion appropriation within the budget bill, and that was from the JAC position. I believe there's around $750,000 for community colleges as well to help offset some of those costs, and for those community colleges that don't have a BOCES funding source as well.
Thank you. Further questions? Representative Yugonos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question on the co-location. How is that going to affect these districts that have multiple facilities, different grades in both educational and in their actual facilities? How's that going to affect?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Representative Gugamas, a good question. Under current law, if a school or two or more schools are organized within a single building, they receive administrative positions for both of those schools and also teacher allocations as if they're their own school. But under the maintenance and operations statutes, under the block grant and under school facilities, they are looked at a single school facility. So what this recalibration does is it accepts the consultant's recommendations that in that scenario, any building with two or more schools will be looked at as a single school, and it'll be resourced a administrator position or additional assistant principals if it's large enough for that school. But the teacher positions are still allocated at a grade band level, and there is a minimum number of teachers at each grade band. So the model still recognizes on a grade band level that you need a minimum level of teacher positions. So at an elementary grade band, that minimum is 6, middle schools is 7, and a high school is 9. And so for purposes of co-location, the only impact is really at the administrative level. And when we looked at the data during the interim with the select committee, majority of those co-located schools hired far fewer administrative positions. That one building only had one principal. And so it really just aligns to what they're actually doing and for that consultant recommendation.
Representative Strzok.
Thank you, Chairman. Back to the same worry here or question. I have had some people reach out to me that they feel like they're the middle. They're not really tiny, but they feel like it's really going to hurt them. With that new setup they have in that. Do you have an answer for that?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Strzok, I'm happy to explore the details of the data. And if you have an example that you want to provide me, I'm happy to respond to that on an individual basis. I can't answer on just kind of a broad question, but broadly speaking, school districts have and continue to hire far fewer teacher positions than what the model allocates. This model provides an additional 259 more teacher positions statewide, and it increases the salaries in the model by 20%. So there are robust teacher resources that are still being allocated. I think statewide is $123 million more than what the current law provides. So some of those instances we can certainly look into and show you the data. You bet.
Thank you. Further questions? Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator and Mr. Wilmarth. One more question. What's the motivation of the committee to move from salary-based funding to our average salary? I get a lot of questions about that.
Senator Roth.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman. So this was a recommendation of our consultant, and it was a recommendation of our consultant, I think, for 2 recalibrations. The existing law uses a base salary for the calculation and then adds on from the base salary both a regional cost adjustment and then a years of experience and education, and it builds up an average teacher for that district. And then it pays out from that average. So it has a base salary, but then it creates an average person, and then it pays out the average person. It's really hard to do that, and it's really hard to make that cost-based. And we haven't done that in a long time. So it's basically just been districts have been coming up with their own thing for how much extra they want to pay for experience, how much extra they want to pay for education. That has almost nothing in common with what we put in statute because we've been dramatically underfunding everything in statute for many, many years in terms of that base funding. We know that it's been insufficient by at least 20% for a long time. So as we come into this recalibration and as we came into the prior recalibration, the consultant just said, look, there's no evidence basis for any of that. I can't come up with an evidence-based answer to your question of how much extra should we be paying for 1 year of experience? How much extra should we be paying for 3 credit hours towards your master's degree? There's not an evidence basis for that. So the consultant said, what I can give you an evidence basis for is, what should your average salary be? I can tell you that. So that's why we are where we are, because it's what we could authoritatively receive recommendations on from our consultant, and that is an average, and that average is based on comparable wage, right? So our consultants are looking at other likely positioned and like educated, like experienced individuals in the labor market in Wyoming, in various places, and determining what is their average salary. And then they multiply that by 0.791, and that's where our number 70,560 came with. And then we, on the education committee side, took it up to 85% for the reasons that I mentioned before. So basically, there was no defensible way to do it. Our consultant wasn't going to do it, and so our consultant handed us that number. As far as can the district still do what they want to do? They absolutely can. And in fact, for the first 3 years, we direct them to update their salary classification tables, right? Their tables of experience and tables of lanes, recognizing that it has to be targeting the average. So you'll have some employees that are below, some employees that are above, some with higher education, and the average should be what that's built around, just as it has been in the past. And that average honestly hasn't changed very much, but over the years, it actually has decreased. The total experience ratings would go down. So if we recalculated it now, it would actually just be kind of a, well, let's lower where we're putting it at, because the average statewide experience is slightly lower than it was when those tables were established. So very complicated answer. Matt, did I miss anything there?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Williams, the only other item I would add is the premium adjustments for the experience in education under current law, and the value of those was done on analysis back in the 2005 recalibration. And so the only increases made to those have been through an external cost adjustment by the legislature. There is no rational link to what those amounts are today. And our consultant, again, says that there's no reason to do that anymore. Districts can still establish their salary schedules as they see fit. They receive an average salary in the model now, and they establish their salary schedules as they see fit. And it should be just viewed in the same manner today. They can, under this bill, they can establish those salary schedules as they see fit and choose what they want to value under a base salary or a stepper lane. And the legislature is not going to control that except for the average salary for the first 3 years.
And Mr. Chairman, so Mr. Chairman, they know their district average salary right now. In fact, they reported it to us. So we know their district average salaries. They know from this model what their new district average salary would be. You just take that percentage difference and you multiply every existing ladder position by it, and it shifts the whole model. So there's no reason anybody has to change their model in any way other than to do a percentage shift, and it'll be dialed right back into where it needs to be.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
The Department of Education. Superintendent Degenfelder.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Megan Degenfelder, State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Want to first take a moment to thank the Recalibration Committee and the work of the Senate to get us where we are today. Incredible amount of time and hours that's gone into that. Also look forward to the upcoming interim to continue to discuss some of these issues. Would also mention that I would hope that this interim discussion beyond the topics that were addressed by the previous speakers would include funding as it relates to our virtual education programs and to public charter schools, because I'm not sure that that's been fully contemplated, excuse me, and so would recommend that. I believe what you find before you that has come out of the Senate is a strong compromise. I think there's been good work that's been done there. I support the compromise that we have achieved when it comes to health insurance. I support the increase to the teacher salaries, support the movement from simply year 2 forward to year 1 when it comes to our counselors and our nurses. I support the compromise of the 2-year ADM calculation, as well as the small school district adjustments. You also discussed a little bit around dual and concurrent enrollment. This is also a topic that I believe warrants further discussion, and I believe you will see come forward in a joint request by members of the committee, the Department of Education, and the Community College Commission for the interim work for your committee. Want to just again reiterate that this bill includes a net increase of $125 million a year for education and represents an increase for every district in the state of Wyoming. I believe that it's imperative that the legislature make a good faith effort and adjust the funding model as it relates to education in the state of Wyoming this year. This is difficult work and has required great compromise, and there's a reason why this has not been accomplished in several years. But I have full faith that this year, this legislature can make that compromise and can put something together to ensure that we increase our funding for education. Like all of you who serve on this committee, I believe passionately in the power of public education. A strong Wyoming only exists with a strong education system. And our public education system is truly the means where any child can rise from poverty and fulfill the American dream. That's why this is so important, to ensure that we are increasing our funding for education and ensure that we are keeping up with that recalibration process. Now, is this bill completely perfect for every single person in this room or online? No, it's not. But again, this is a strong compromise where we find ourselves today. Will we hear great public comment that will poke holes within the bill and many different aspects that isn't their perfect version? Of course we will. But again, I believe that the most important thing that we can do here is ensure that we are increasing our funding model, that we are keeping pace with our education system in the state of Wyoming, and that we consider what's truly best for students and put that above politics. With that, Mr. Chairman, would stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any other state departments or agencies? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee. I'm Laurel Ballard with the Wyoming Community College Commission, and I will promise to make it really brief. While this is a K-12 funding bill, we are here the colleges are very much in support of this bill with the addition of the dual enrollment. So just a little perspective for you. In 2010, SEA 52 put a requirement in for community colleges to offer 12 credits for all juniors and seniors in high school. And while we do receive funding, partial funding for it through our state aid and through the property tax, local mill levies that we receive, that it did not pay for the tuition and fees. And while some communities have the BOCES and the BOCHES, we're still seeing some pretty significant losses in terms of in the millions of dollars for colleges. And so we're excited to see this. We have seen a jump of students over the last 4 years in dual enrollment by 44%. So we're seeing large increases of students taking dual enrollment. More and more students are taking more credits of dual enrollment. And so it's been highly used, right? It really is one of the primary tools parents have to reduce the cost of college for their students. And so we are excited to see this. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I will leave it with that. I will say that the way it is structured in this bill is really pretty beautiful. It keeps the colleges pretty much whole. It keeps the K-12 whole in this regard. And it not just allows for the equitable access and funding and in access and equitable access for students and parents. And it really kind of incentivizes it to some extent, which we're happy to see. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. All right, we'll now open it up to public testimony. I think we will start with those in opposition. There will be 10 minutes dedicated to those in opposition and 10 minutes dedicated to those in support, and a limit of 2 minutes on each speaker. Would anyone like to testify in opposition? Please fill the chairs.
Good morning, excuse me, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Clark Coberly. I serve the community of Upton in Weston 7. I'm also battling a cold, so I'm going to whip through this real quick here. We appreciate the commitment of the legislature to provide a world-class education for the 87,500 students and the 30,000 employees that serve those students in the state. One of the things that we have a concern about with the increases and some of the categorization that is evident in this bill is changes to the bill were made at third reading in the Senate that wisely eliminated the mandate to move the districts to the state insurance plan. But the second part of the amendment that made that happen restricts funding to the districts based on the look back to October 1st of the previous year. On page 59, it says that funding will be based on the actual participants of who took healthcare from the previous year. I've got 6 examples of our staff right now, which makes up about 10% of our staff that came on insurance after October 1st of 2025. And so therefore they wouldn't be funded the next year. This year and next year, we had a teacher who's been with the district for 8 years. When her husband came on staff, they joined our program. We had an aide that went to a higher premium. We had a teacher who is currently on their parents' health plan that will age out to her own health plan next year. A secretary who comes onto our plan when her husband retires, and a teacher who's going to come on our plan when her husband retires as well. We've heard that beginning in 27, 28, if we have a surplus, we're supposed to send money back, but we don't have anything.
Please wrap up your comments. Thank you.
Can I finish my sentence?
Yes.
Okay. With the categorization of salaries and the money that moved in there, we don't have a chance to take care of insurance or pull it from anywhere else.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions? Seeing none. Oh, Representative Williams.
Chairman, Mr. Coberly. In particular, on page 59, that language there. What change there would address your concern?
My preference would be to strike all of page 59 and 60, but or the top lines of 60, and just leave how we're funding insurance the way it is in current statute without any change. Right now, most currently, we would like some type of a buffer that allows us to either pull money from the block grant or, the teacher instructional salaries to go back. We typically sit down with our staff and we talk about, do we want to raise in salary? How are we going to handle insurance? Like last year when we generously received the 8.5% ECA adjustment, we use that for some of our insurance purposes and our salary purposes to kind of catch up. We moved our base to $50,000 because Spearfish, South Dakota, for the first time ever has exceeded us. But also our staff said we want to be able to keep the insurance premium coverage that we have. We have some flexibility. Our board of trustees has really worked hard to give us an aggressive benefits package in addition to our salary package. So I would prefer to see 7 through 22 and the first line deleted so that we can go back to what we currently have in statute. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody. Curtis Rankin, I'm board chair for Weston County School District Number 7, Upton. We are a very small school district, and it's very important for us to be able to move money around so that we can cover all of our costs. So when you start putting this instructional money in the silo, there's lots of money over there. We appreciate that. That works great. But we have stuff on the other side of the fence that's not getting funded. Like we don't get enough for our property and casualty insurance. We're on our own school lunch program. We've got ranchers that donate meat. We've got people that donate vegetables. So I don't know what the figure is. Maybe it's 15% that we could be able to move from the instructional side to the other side so we can cover some of these costs and benefit our kids. And with that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Justin Parentoni, Superintendent of Laramie County School District Number 2. Hopefully more important than that title of superintendent, you would value my comments today as being someone who's not only a employee of a school district in Wyoming, but I'm a product and I'm a parent and I'm also a champion of public education. So I stand before you today, not necessarily in opposition of the bill, but I was accused, I don't know if the word accused is right, but I was told the other day that I think too far down the road. So today I'm going to take you down my road and just share a minute and 37 seconds of what that road might look like. My question to you is this: why do we need a silo and a 5% guarantee for the next 3 years? Is one already doing what the other one's going to do? And my concern with the silo, from an operational standpoint, is that it sounds nice when we say we move something from one side and we put it in the other. But when you're in a smaller district, or any district for that matter, it doesn't necessarily play out that way. To pull 60 million out of health insurance to put it in instructional, that is not for every person in our district. I have about roughly 200 staff members in my district. Half of them are classified. I'm not sure that the silo does what it's intended to do, but the 5% over 3 years does. So my question is, why do we need to have both of those? We will need, as a district, time to figure out how to do a new pay scale. It will take years. What does it mean when we don't get an ECA next year, but we're going to offer a lane? In my district, that's a 2% increase. So, but if I put that in there, it's going to take us some time to do that. I also want to remind you that while we may be doing things in the interim to think about, that doesn't mean that we're going to release those employees until that's decided. So because things are now siloed, we now have to find different ways to fund those, because we're not going to let those employees go only to fight for them. Just a couple more pieces of information for you. The first one is this. We walked the Black Hills State Job Fair earlier this week. 53 candidates. 158 are doing their student teaching at University of Wyoming right now. That's 200. There's not 1,000 or 1,400 teachers waiting in the next 4 years, 3 years. It's out there. And my last question to you is, we've been receiving information, thankfully, from the LSO on how they see what's happening. I would challenge you to look at that breakdown of what instructional resources are and ask yourself if it's all inclusive. I look at the list and I see things that actually have the word instructional in them as a non-personnel resource that aren't listed as an instructional resource in the
Right,
silo.
thank you. If you could wrap up your comments, I'd appreciate
I
it.
wanted to thank you all for listening to me today, and I would stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Ryan Mackey, Superintendent of Schools in Converse 1 in Douglas. And I just wanted to touch briefly, going back to the insurance component. So back on page 59, lines 7 through 14. Just wanted to bring to your attention for classified employees, when the consultant back in 2005 identified the definition of how many working hours to be full-time, it was 2,080 working hours. But in obviously our educational system, they work 185 hours at 8 hours a day. That gives you a total of 1,480 hours. So when you take the 1,480 divided by the 2,080, our classified employees are essentially 0.71 FTEs. But we're required to pay the full premium for that employee. But if we only get reimbursed for 0.71, then we're going to be underfunded in the classified section of employees. So in looking at that, how are we going to make that difference up? The other thing that I think we could do is going back to the question that I believe Representative Williams asked, what could that language be? I think it could say actual, so that we fund the actual employee on head count, not on the percentage of the FTE that they are based on the hours that they're working. I'd also like to point out that, there are a few recapture districts in the state, as you all know. And so on that reimbursable for the recapture districts, after the year thereafter, we expected to cash flow that amount up until that point. And so that leads into a discussion of potentially looking at the level of caps on reserves. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We're technically out of time, but I'll give each of you who are at the table now a minute to speak. Is that all right? Thank you. I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, good afternoon. Brandon Finney, Business Manager for Sheridan County School District Number 2. And prior to this position, I worked for the Wyoming State Construction Department, School Facilities Division for 10 years. I just want to point out one item. It's in the enhancements section that was called out in, I believe, paragraph B. And what it does is it talks about moving money to the depreciation reserves. A lot of the enhancements are not just standalone facilities on the edge of a property, but rather integral components within a facility. Our school board has already, and multiple school boards have moved money and restricted it for those enhancements and needs throughout the school districts. So there's an opportunity to perhaps study it and look at the fiscal impact through the Select Committee on School Facilities.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any questions? Thank you. Let's go ahead.
Mr. Chair, committee members, Tristan Green, Money Lady from Alamany County School District. Really quick, I just want to thank you for your efforts. This is tough and we're getting there, and I appreciate what has been done so far. Here's a few concerns that I still have. And under this proposal, we are funded fewer staff than what we currently have now. Fewer staff. I don't employ as many staff as the model does because I couldn't, because I had to pay them at a higher level. So I'm not really gaining any extra staff. I'm losing staff. You're just now bringing up the level of funding so where I can hire the amount of staff that I should have been able to hire to begin with. As Senator Rothfuss said, you're taking health insurance monies and putting that into the siloed pot. Well, that's all the districts have been doing for years. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's not new money, it's just changing lanes. So why is it okay for you to change those lanes, but looked bad when we change those lanes? All of our salary and benefit money is going to salaries and benefits. With regards to the ECA, I understand wanting to make sure that the funds are being spent where you allocate them. But in order for us to follow the model, we have to be funded in all of the areas of the model. We decreased utilities and we decreased major maintenance and maintenance and operations. Well, utility funding used to cover that maintenance operations. With a reduction of both, what am I to do? What is not included in this silo is your coaches and your sponsors. Those are salaries that are instructional salaries, but being left on the table. I'll send you an email. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Thank you. Let's see. We'll now take testimony in support of the bill. Please fill the chairs. Ms. Saban.
Chairman, committee members, thank you. I'm up here in overall support of the bill. The Wyoming Education Association certainly understands the concerns that are still there, but like the Department of Education, we also believe that this is a long process and that we have come a very long way, and that this bill is very good from where it started, and that it is as close to constitutionally funded as we have been in a very long time. And so we wanted to say thank you to the Recalibration Committee and also to the members of the Senate for bringing this bill forward. It's not perfect. There are still things that need to be addressed, and you've heard those things from the superintendents and from the business managers and people who have testified to you. So I just wanted to say thank you, and we support moving forward and possibly making adjustments that need to be made.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Good afternoon.
Hello, my name is Katie Christofferson. I'm a parent here in Laramie County 1. I've been following this process since October, just as a concerned parent trying to learn on my own all about it. I do want to recognize all of the good work and compromises that have been made. And specifically, I know this is a small portion of it, but I feel like it's been hidden a little bit. Just from our parents' perspective, in regards to the middle school electives and the amendment that was made in the Senate, with how elective teachers are calculated based on percentages of core teachers and changing the class sizes, the changing that back to anything but what it is right now will be a cut. I believe that there's a little bit of a cut just with the increase in class sizes, but we need to keep that 33% where it is, if at all possible. I just feel like it shows the value of what those middle school kids get in their schools. And I applaud the other amendments about the ECA, the mental health nurses, adjusting that now and the continued discussion moving forward. And I would stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Is there any further public testimony in the room? No one online still. All right, we'll close public testimony. We did get to about the full 20 minutes. And we have quite a few amendments up here. So sorry to cut that short, but I tried to let it run as long as I think I can. So committee, what is your pleasure?
The bill.
Moved by Representative Lawley, seconded by Representative Singh. All right, so we have 4 amendments in front of us that were pre-prepared. Does everybody have these 4 amendments ending in 201, 802, 701, and 604? Are we good? We will, I guess whoever would like to move an amendment is time. Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move what you guys see as 701.
Mr. Chairman, somebody has to move the bill to work it.
We did move it.
It was moved. Sorry.
Welcome back, Ashley. We missed you though. I mean it. So, Mr. Chairman, I move this amendment. Let me tell you a little bit what it's about. This is, you'll find the text of what I'm deleting here. There's some adjustments made conforming amendments, but on page 51, you'll turn there in your bill. And what I'm deleting is what was I think a Hicks third reading amendment, and it required for some reporting to the department. And my understanding from my district is this information is already reported, perhaps in a slightly different form, but the information is given to the department. So again, committee, my concern is unnecessarily burdening districts with reports that's information that they're already giving in another form. And that's why I asked for your support for the amendment. So we would just delete this extra reporting that was added as a third reading amendment by the Senate. So, and that's what this amendment 701 does.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Question having been called. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, no. No. Excuse me. The amendment has been adopted. I'd like to move amendment, no. 604. This is a cleanup amendment from our good staff. It doesn't effectively do anything to the bill. It is just technical corrections. Typically, we see a lot of these as the Senate files come through. So is there a second?
Second.
Moved and
Second.
seconded. All those
I
in,
second all the commentary, but I second.
all those in favor? All those opposed?
No.
Amendment is adopted.
I want another one.
Oh, Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also move what you have in your hand is Amendment 802. And again, if you will, some of these are at the beginning are conforming and at the end, and then they're on line 5, of the amendment. You will see up on page 41 where what I'm changing or proposing to change. And this goes to the issue of the cap put on the superintendent's salaries. While I understand what's maybe the intention of it, again, I think this is received by districts in a very negative way. I know my district, that's the way they felt. And so my amendment proposes deleting line on page 41, line 6 through 13 to take out that provision concerning a cap on superintendent's salaries. I also don't believe we've seen in Wyoming, at least again, in my district, where this has been an issue. Like the ratio was off, or this would certainly to this extent of this, they would not have reached this cap. So anyway, I ask for your favorable consideration. If I get a second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we are, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no.
No.
The amendment is adopted.
Mr. Chairman,
Further, Representative Williams.
I'd like to move amendment 201. And that is the part of that amendment's on page 40 and page 41. And we've heard about this from our districts here today and from the good senator who was involved in the recalibration conversations. And I'm not trying to upset the apple cart here, but this amendment removes the instructional silo. And I think we heard there's good reason to have it in there, but there's also a good reason to give small districts a latitude to do what they need to do to mind their own business. The same people who elected me also elect my school board members in all 4 districts that I deal with. And I believe this conversation is a local conversation, and my local school boards need to have the flexibility to manage their own business. And so I'm just bringing this amendment to see if there's any appetite in the committee to remove the instructional silos that we've been hearing about today.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just quickly, I remember going all the way back to this situation, and when the recal first came out, if you remember, and I did as much of my possible homework as I could in checking with the districts, and even though I didn't get all 48 of them, I was nearly able to get some input concerning this exact same thing. And it was the tendency that we were showing, and then we got a lot of feedback about it also, that we were taking away the local control. and the ability outside of those silos if the silos were to pass. And so I think this is very important to the people throughout Wyoming, all the way ranging in our communities, our school districts. And I think we would be amiss if we did not address this. And so with that, thank you for allowing me to comment.
Further discussion? Question having been called, we are voting on the amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no.
No.
Amendment has not been adopted.
Would we show hands?
Division?
Yeah, division.
All right. All those in favor? All those opposed? Amendment has not been adopted.
Thank you, Chairman.
Was that all the amendments? I think that was all four. Is there any further amendments or discussion?
Question.
That's just.
That was quicker than I thought it would be. Question having been called. All those. No, we aren't doing it that way. Please call the roll.
This is a roll call vote for Senate File 81 as amended. Representative Bratton,
Aye.
Representative Erickson,
No.
Representative Guggenmoss,
Aye.
Representative Kelly,
Excused.
Representative Lawley,
Aye.
Representative Singh.
Aye.
Representative Strock,
Aye.
Representative Williams,
No.
Chairman Andrew.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that is 6 ayes, 2 noes, 1 excused.
Senate File 81 has passed the committee. We are now adjourned. I should have taken more polite